Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski of we.are.change.org, joined with financial advisor Tim Pachote. And in this video, we're going to do what we always do. I'm going to break down what is happening socially, politically. Tim's going to be breaking down everything that is happening economically. And there's a lot of crazy economic move with Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, with Donald Trump announcing that Americans will get $1,000 within 2 weeks. A lot of crazy news. And before we dive into, of course, the social political aspect of it, I just wanted to notify you that this is our second channel. We have a main channel. Tim has his other channel as well, but we're doing this because of very aggressive maneuvers by YouTube. YouTube actually clarified what they're doing during this difficult time where people are relying on information. They, of course, are restricting independent information from getting to you, and their new guidelines are to now not to even downrank videos or demonetize them or flag them or to potentially even review them. It's just now to delete them. Officially on their own Twitter account, Team YouTube tweeted out, quote, "With fewer people to review content, our automated systems will be stepping in to keep YouTube safe." Again, what they mean by safe is regurgitating mainstream media crap down your throat. You know, the mainstream media that failed you with all the major wars, with the previous financial crisis, any major tragedy, the mainstream media usually gets it wrong. Particularly with their financial advice as well. But going on, YouTube says, more videos will be removed than normal during this time, including content that does not violate our community guidelines. We know this will be hard for all of you. We appreciate your patience. What? Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, it's just an absolute ridiculous response by YouTube. And this is why we have this new channel starting off brand new during this time. So you guys subscribing, you guys being a part of the conversations, commenting down below really means a lot. So sincerely thank you for all the people who are coming over from all the different avenues joining us here before this video or many others get deleted. On my main channel, We Are Change, I already have a couple of videos getting deleted. They don't even send me a notification. I don't even know which ones they are. But regardless of that, they're doing this because we're reporting on, of course, the latest information around the coronavirus, which is important to cover from an independent media, sovereign freedom aspect, since of course all we're hearing from mainstream media is just the same kind of talking points, the same kind of talking lines, that it's racist to call this the Wuhan virus, and just other complete nonsense that is not helpful at all. There's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of panicking, and the more information we're able to hear from all sides, the better. But that's not according to YouTube, that of course is suppressing all of us, which is important to understand during this difficult time for all of us. And you are very lucky to be getting these videos. So sharing them also makes a big difference. So far, the latest information we have around COVID-19 is that the total number of confirmed cases in the United States just passed 5,000, as the global number nears 200,000. But of course, the numbers are expected to be a lot higher here in the United States, since of course many people are not getting tested. There's a major shortage of tests, and a lot of people, even people I know personally, two I know that had to fight tooth and nail to get the test, actually got it. Two, they were just told no, they're not getting the test. They have all the symptoms, and they're screwed here. They call the hotline to get tested, and they're like, yeah, sorry, buddy, you have all the symptoms. Sorry, lady, you have all the symptoms. We don't care. You're not getting tested. So we have to understand these numbers are absolutely full of crap right now. There's a lot more sick individuals out there, and a lot of them are not showing symptoms. As reported by this Italian publication, we're finding out that 50 to 75% of cases in one particular Italian town were asymptomatic, meaning showing no symptoms at all, but they were contagious. This could be one of the reasons why Italy has blossomed to be the epicenter of the coronavirus in Europe, and may soon be the epicenter of the coronavirus in the world. And this is why Italy is being so heavily devastated, according to many people, because people have it, they don't know it, they share it with other people, and that is something that we should always keep in mind, especially with so many people being irresponsible there. And let's just call it inadequate government action. Doctors are also claiming that this coronavirus may damage testicles and fertility. That's a whole nother topic that we could discuss and go into later on. In Iran, the government is warning that millions of its citizens could die from this virus. It's also important to note here that the United States has very strict sanctions on Iran that prevent a lot of important medical equipment from going into that country, and it has worsened the situation significantly there. Another thing to look out for is that a major ventilator maker company came out publicly and said that they can increase production by 500% and make sure that enough people, especially here in the United States, have ventilators, which are crucial to dealing with this coronavirus. But there has been no order put in for them, no ramp up of production at all. Again, a lot of people in ICU depend on ventilators. There's a big scare of not having enough ventilators. And again, that's one criticism to thousands of criticisms and incompetencies and just actions by the government that are absolutely asinine. This entire situation could have been prevented, and it's not, and it's only going to get worse from here. And I'm sorry, the people responsible, I'm pointing the finger directly at them. That's my take on it from the latest social political aspect. Tim, what are you seeing economically, since those developments are just as big as fireworks as the social political kind of fireworks that we're seeing unfold as well?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And for my world, I mean, this is just absolutely craziness going on. Yesterday, we saw the Dow Jones Industrial Average lose nearly 3,000 points. It was down 2,997. So you got to like how, they didn't want to get the 3,000 number. So it's almost like something going on sale here at a convenience store. Like, oh, it's 2,997. We'll just sneak that in. Not quite 3,000. But, it just... I don't even know where to begin. So what we're going to do right now is just show you guys some of the headlines. This was from an earlier press conference that was given. It might even still be going on right now, where Trump is having a White House briefing on basically giving out free money. So he's got the Andrew Yang type plan. And so let me just start reading off some headlines. Fed will help businesses get up to $1 trillion in funding in the short-term borrowing markets amid coronavirus. Now, there's all sorts of stipulations of who's going to get that. I mean, I doubt I can go and apply and try to get some of that free money. It's all the big banks that have been sucking off your tax money to begin with. Mnuchin says Trump administration is looking to get cash to Americans immediately. And sort of the skip to the end version of this is they're looking at somewhere in the next 2 weeks of giving out roughly, $1,000 to every adult in America. And I don't think I've ever pronounced that adult before, but for some reason I decided that I'm on air and would say that today. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin says financial markets will stay open, but could shorten trading hours. So, I don't really get what shortening trading hours means. I know what it means, but I don't really get what the point of that is. I mean, I also don't really get the point of what a lot of these circuit breakers are for. And then we got an article coming out of Yahoo Finance. Second quarter GDP, that's gross domestic product, could plunge 10%, economist warns. That is absolutely massive. I mean, that's even with all their rigged numbers. I wrote a book on how these numbers are rigged. I gave it away for free, so now I'm not trying to go sell you guys on a book. Then we have D word, rears head as coronaviruses hit markets, brace for recession. Yeah, tons of craziness going on. Another problem for the Fed. Banks pressured as clients scramble for cash. I know, Luke, you could probably jump in right now if you want to talk about maybe some of your own experience of trying to get some cash out in New York City. That we were told that it was just one bank was under pressure, that they ran out of $100 bills. But what has your experience been in New York City on this front?
Well, of course, the first article that came out was just one bank ran out of $100 bills. I mean, I went to some ATMs last night just to check all this out, and just to, of course, be smart and prepared and be ahead of everything else. And they only had 50s, and they had a limit. So this is something to critically look out for, because especially from my experiences in places like Zimbabwe and Venezuela, I mean, when there's hyperinflation, having a little bit of cash helps out, but at the end of the day, with the hyperinflation, with just the insanity of the economy going down, I mean, I've talked to people who are literally in stores, and the value of items jumped hundreds of percent literally when they were in the store, and stores couldn't even open and panic because the value of their currency at the time was just absolutely worthless, and people were stuck holding it. So I still think it's better to have as much as like being diversified as much as you can, having cash, having a little bit of money, in the bank, and all different kind of baskets as you possibly can. So just did a little test yesterday, and it's not looking promising.
Yeah, I mean, not looking promising at all, Luke. But as we're going back to some of these headlines, I mean, I did hear yesterday from Peter Schiff. I checked out about 10 minutes of his podcast, and I heard him say that the reserve requirement went back down to zero. Now, I couldn't find where that was. Maybe it's because all the news had to do with everything else that the Fed was doing. But let's just say that if this is true, and Peter, and as long as we're not talking about Bitcoin, I think he usually does a pretty good job on a lot of his economic analysis. So, assuming this is true, what the reserve requirement ratio is, banks need to keep 10% in reserves overnight. And so if this went down to zero, it's basically, and I'm saying if, because I haven't independently verified this myself, but if this did go down to zero, then what this effectively means that the banks don't need to hold on to any of your money. And this creates so much moral hazard. It was how we ended the video yesterday, talking about moral hazard. But if the banks know they have this FDIC insurance, but I mean, the FDIC insurance is basically worthless. It's like Luke and I trying to backstop Bill Gates. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. There's not enough money for us to be able to do this. And then, speaking of, diversify, we have, is the bottom finally in? Bridgewater puts on $14 billion short. Now, Bridgewater is run by Ray Dalio. This is the largest hedge fund in the world. And I believe the article goes on to say that they are down 20%. And he famously, or I guess infamously, said in the beginning of February of just this past year, or late January, said cash is trash. And right now, his fund is looking trash, as it says here, losing an epic 20% in just a few weeks. And they did have a lot of diversification, except in a market when things are going down and when things are going to, when the world's going to hell in the handbasket, a lot of times diversification doesn't work, because what we saw in 2008, everything was going down, but there are issues that are different now than in 2008. Because in 2008, you had the baby boomers, the oldest ones were 62 years old. They weren't having to pull money from their accounts. So I hate saying the cliche saying this time it's different, but guess what? This time it is different, because now those 62-year-olds are about 74 years old. They have to take money out of their 401ks, A, because the government's making them, and B, they need money to live off of. We talked about in, several times, the average American, is living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have excess savings. And so how are they going to, get by when they're not working? And so what is going to go, why this is different this time, that this is, the powers that be cannot afford to have a financial crisis. And the reason they can't afford to have a financial crisis is because they built up an entire system on debt. And as soon as you stop the music, so to speak, everything will plummet. And the reason I say this, and I'm not just, speculating on this, is just take a look at how much debt makes everything go round. The system is built on debt. Our money is actually debt. It's actually currency. That the dollar bill in your pocket is technically currency, but it's backed by debt. And so when you aren't producing more and more debt, then the system, what happens is since the money is backed by debt, you're always going to have more money than you have debt. So let's say this represents debt, this represents money down below here, and so if you use money to pay off debt, eventually you end up with the whole system imploding. And that's sort of what's going on right here, Luke, is that we're seeing this implosion where, because of the fact that these pension funds have nowhere near the amount of money that they need to pay their obligations, and not only company pensions, but state and local governments, and so let's say these pensions are already, Illinois it's only 25% funded, and that's with their BS calculations. I actually discovered on accident, when I was researching one of my clients' pensions, that there was something either in 2015 or 16, I believe, and of course the name was something like Protecting Every American's Retirement Act or some BS like that. And when I went into this, they actually passed a law, and again, I think it was 2015, where the pensions are forced to take the bond funds that they have in there, and the assumed interest rate is going to be a trailing 25-year LIBOR. So what that means in layman's terms is they basically are assuming that they're going to get about 6% return on their bonds. And so right now the bonds are paying next to nothing. In some cases they are paying nothing. And so the government is literally forcing them to use that number as 6%, when the real number is dramatically lower. They used to use the current LIBOR rate, or like a trailing 2-year LIBOR rate. And so so even with the government's BS phony manipulated numbers, these pensions are screwed. So if you're Illinois, you're 25% funded, you were game over a long time ago. A lot of these other pensions that are 80, even if you're 80%, or if you're lucky enough to be 90%, or even if you were 100% funded, and now all of a sudden you're down 30%, and you're having 10,000 seniors a day turning 65, starting to collect Social Security, starting to go on Medicare, which is a much bigger problem than Social Security in terms of funding. Social Security could be fixed relatively easily. I don't think it should be fixed. I don't like people steal my money and try to propose other plans. People could do it more efficiently. But the thing is, the system cannot rebuild itself because it doesn't have another 10 years for those 62-year-olds to ride things out, because because every day there's more 62-year-olds, there's more and more 72-year-olds. So maybe the solution to this is coronavirus to wipe them out. I'm saying that just, obviously in a gallows humor type thing, because this is a calamity that is much different than 2008, but it was caused because of the response of 2008. And that response was to print a bunch of money, paper this over, give money to all the richest people in the world, have companies buy back their own stock. A lot of these companies' earnings are not, I mean, obviously there's exceptions when it comes to like Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, so on and so forth. But most of these companies are not earning that much more money. Certainly weren't earning any more money last year. It's just that when the Fed decided to come to the rescue in late December 2018, when they came to the rescue, what had happened is, everyone thought it was a new day for America, and the companies used that money to buy back their own stock. Well, now, I mean, almost nothing has changed, and from a company's earnings perspective, from 2018 to 2019, except people were willing to spend more money, and people thought the Fed were going to step in. Well, I thought the big day of reckoning would occur when the people stopped caring about the Fed stepping in, because the Fed's been wrong over and over and over and over again. Gave a presentation in March where actually I think Luke was there too, at Anarch, Arizona, in 2019. And I gave a presentation, and I modified that one for Anarchapulco because I was still kind of waiting for this to come. And most of the time I speak on very technical subjects like estate planning and how people can, protect their money and all these other things. But this time I decided, you know what? I'm going to give one on the economy because this is so important. My biggest fear is that it was going to be obsolete by the time I was able to give it. And so luckily I was able to sneak in. But I mean, we do have some other crazy news because we are called, change the news over here. So we're trying to.
Should we do it? Should we do it in a second video? Because I think we're almost close to 20 minutes now in this analysis. And I still want to ask you about Amazon suspending shipments of all non-essential items and the larger effects of this kind of universal basic income that Donald Trump just announced. Should we do a second video on that maybe today, tomorrow, and just launch this video on the main channel? We should. I think this should be a main channel video. I think it's pretty good and a lot of valuable information.
And then let's just go over one or two more things on the financial side of things, because we do have right now on screen where Walton's transfer $48 billion of Walmart shares to Family Trust. And so what people have to understand, and I didn't really dig into exactly I guess, it's secretive, so people don't know the exact type of trust that they're in, but this is an area that I do specialize in, particularly in the Bitcoin community. So you're taking a look at the 5-year chart right now of Walmart. You see it's almost at all-time highs. And so what happens, and I gave basically a master class on this at Anarchapulco, which that video you guys cannot find.
You sure we can't fit this in a second video? Let's try to wrap this up really quickly.
Okay, well, the reason they're doing this is they get tax breaks based upon their stock price. And so with the Walton stock price being at basically an all-time high right now, or right there, they get the transfer to a trust. All that money then gets to transfer capital gains free. They get tax breaks on top of that to then help enrich themselves even further. But you know what? Don't hate the player. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Yeah. And so I help people out with this stuff too. We get tons of crazy news, tons of more stuff to cover. Guys, stay tuned, and we've got more to.
This is why we have a second channel. Check out the second channel. I think this should be a video for the main channel. We're going to do a video today or tomorrow about these specific bigger economic aspects. Again, there's so much to talk about. Stay tuned for more here on Change the News or We Are Change, whatever we decide. Thank you guys.